I'd been married to Olivia Whitney for less than a year when her first love returned from abroad. She grew cold overnight, snapping at me, pushing me away. Eventually, she started seeing someone else behind my back. "You can't give me what I really want," she said one night, her voice razor sharp. "Why can't you just let me go?" So I did. I signed the divorce papers, disappeared, changed my name, and rebuilt my life from scratch. 5 years later, I took my company public. As part of a new expansion plan, I returned to Los Angeles. I had just stepped out of our new office building when a little girl came out of nowhere and wrapped her arms around my leg. "Daddy," she shouted, her voice echoing through the parking garage. She looked about 4 or 5, old enough to know better, but still young enough to act on impulse. The thing was, I had no idea who she was. Obviously, I couldn't shake her off. Not here, not like this. The entire building housed my employees, partners, investors, everyone connected to my company. Making a scene was out of the question. I crouched down, trying to stay calm. "Hey, sweetheart. What's your name? I don't have a daughter your age." She pouted, arms crossed. "My name is Claire. You are my daddy. I saw you on Mommy's phone." My heart skipped. "And who's your mommy?" She rolled her eyes like the answer should be obvious. "Olivia." The name hit me like a punch to the chest. Memories I'd buried deep came rushing back in a flood. Back in college, I had a secret crush on Olivia Whitney that lasted 3 years. She was the rich, dazzling girl everyone admired, the kind with a closet full of designer coats and a last name that meant something. I was just the kid scraping by on scholarships, working late shifts to keep the lights on. During one of our required fitness tests, I blacked out from low blood sugar. When I came to, Olivia was there. She was a year ahead of me and volunteered at the campus health center. She handed me a tissue scented faintly with gardenia. The light poured in behind her, haloing her face. For a second, I thought I was still unconscious, because she looked like something out of a dream. "You're awake?" she asked gently, noticing my dazed expression. Then she reached out and wiped the sweat from my forehead. "You're okay now. You're at the health center." Thank you," I stammered, heat flooding my face. It was almost laughable. She was kind to everyone, but I was already in too deep. Loving her was a one-man war. Just to catch a glimpse of her, I signed up for clubs she was in, volunteered for her department's events. Always from a distance. Because back then, she had a boyfriend, someone from her own world. Wealthy. A perfect match. After graduation, things shifted. With my professor's help, one of my tech projects got funded. I launched my own startup. Olivia's family had fallen on harder times. Her boyfriend left for Europe and never came back. Eventually, she ended up working as a front desk assistant at my company. All those years of buried feelings? They came roaring back. I started pursuing her. One night, someone drugged my drink at a business dinner. I don't remember much, just fragments and heat and her voice. We slept together. After that, she agreed to marry me. I knew she didn't love me. Not really. But the damage was done. We were married. I told myself that maybe, just maybe, things would settle, that in time, she'd grow to accept me. Maybe even love me back. But I was wrong. A year into our marriage, Olivia betrayed me, for him. She had resumed her affair with her ex, sneaking around behind my back. And then came the real blow. She leaked one of our company's most critical project files. It wasn't just a breach of trust. It was a landmine. The project failed. My company is in crisis. Somehow, I became the scapegoat, accused of stealing core code from other companies. "You had sex with me while I was drunk," she snarled at me from behind the iron bars of the police station holding cell. "You ruined my life. So I'm going to destroy yours." Even now, I can still see that look in her eyes, cold, venomous. It chills me to the bone. And now, here I was, staring at a little girl who looked disturbingly like her. Every hair on my body stood on end. "I'm not your dad," I said, my voice flat and low. "Get out of the car. I'll have my assistant take you home. If you don't, I'll call the police." Her big eyes went wide with fear, filling with tears. But I didn't flinch. I pulled out my phone and texted my assistant to come down and escort her. When she realized crying wouldn't work, she finally stepped out of the car, one foot dragging behind the other, turning back every few steps as my assistant led her away. I let out a long breath, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Get a grip, Marcus Morgan. You're not that man anymore. That version of you already died once. There's no going back. My name used to be Ryan Smith. I came from a house no one would ever call a home, an alcoholic father, a mother addicted to gambling, and me, the collateral damage of it all. Getting into college was my escape route, the only lifeline I had. I left that broken place and never looked back. Even then, I lived like I was walking a tightrope, counting every dollar, budgeting down to the penny. The only reckless thing I ever did was fall for Olivia Whitney. That night, the one that changed everything, I was drugged. Someone spiked my drink. I still don't know who or why. By the time I opened my eyes, Olivia was in my room. I never even had the chance to ask how she got there. She'd always been distant with me, polite, cool, untouchable. No matter how many times I tried to explain that I'd been set up, she wouldn't believe me. Still, she said yes when I proposed. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was pressure. Either way, it wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined. To the world, Olivia was a vision, graceful, gentle, the kind of woman who lit up a room just by walking in. People would look at me, raise their eyebrows, and say, "Ryan, man, you really hit the jackpot." I'd just smile, tight, tired, and hollow. Behind closed doors, Olivia was nothing like the woman they saw. She was demanding. Everything had to be the best, her clothes, her food, her life. I bore the financial weight of her lifestyle like a millstone around my neck. But I said nothing. I felt like I owed her. After all, I had taken something from her, even if I hadn't meant to. So I endured it all. The insults. The contempt. I never talked back. And then the abuse turned physical. She'd hit me. Kick me. Once, I found a bruise stretching from my ribcage to my back, blooming like a shadow. Still, I said nothing. I wore suits to work. Smiled in meetings. Played the part of the lucky husband. No one knew the truth. Maybe my silence pleased her. Because once in a while, when she was in the mood, she'd crawl into my bed like everything between us was normal. And I let her. But even that, our nights together, was never on my terms. The moment she got what she wanted, she'd shove me off the bed like I was something filthy, then toss a used condom at my face with a look of disgust. "You're disgusting," she'd sneer. "Men like you are the lowest of the low." I never believed I deserved that kind of hatred. But what could I do? It had already happened. Maybe some part of me thought it was just my fate. My father used to beat me half-conscious after a bottle of whiskey. Maybe this was just what I was made for. Tough skin. Bruises fade. I always survived. Eventually, the company started turning a profit, and Olivia's mood softened. One evening, she showed up at the office with a bottle of wine and an unusual smile on her face. She was sweet, even flirtatious. We ended up spending the night in my cramped little office, tangled in a mess of cheap liquor and misplaced hope. A few days later, the police came knocking. I was accused of stealing proprietary code from the Sinclair Group, code that happened to mirror the exact architecture of our flagship project. They wanted me to come in for questioning. The project tanked. The company's finances crumbled. Within weeks, it all collapsed. But I wasn't entirely helpless. I had evidence, enough to prove I wasn't the one who leaked the code. The company was gone, sure, and the debt was crushing. But at least I wouldn't be going to prison. The news of my arrest reached my father. He suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and was left paralyzed. My mother finally crawled out of the casino, her body frail and skeletal, and showed up at the detention center like some twisted ghost of my past. "Mom, it's okay," I said through sleep-deprived eyes. "He used to hit you every damn day. Maybe now you're finally free." She didn't care. She wasn't listening. She just went on about her misery, her sacrifices. "Ryan. He's your father," she shrieked. "I don't care what happened, you're gonna pay for his treatment." She screamed like I was some heartless monster, like I owed them more than my entire life already had. I didn't answer. I just stared at her. "You want me to save him? But Mom, then who will save me?" Somehow, she managed to get in touch with Olivia. Finally, Olivia brought Damon Sinclair to see me. They offered me a deal. Dismissed the lawsuit. Let me give up on saving my own company. Keep quiet. In return, they would pay for my parents' medical care, and I wouldn't have to pay off a crushing debt. "Ryan," Damon Sinclair sneered, his hand resting possessively on Olivia's waist, "I could crush your little company with one finger. You touched my woman. This is what you get." He was enjoying every second of it. "You're lucky it's just a year behind bars," Olivia added, curled sweetly into his side, her voice dripping with mock pity. "If we pushed for everything you did, you'd be in for at least 3. I stared at her, stunned, the words choking in my throat. "Did I treat you so badly?" I rasped. "Since the day we got married, was I ever cruel to you? Why the hell would you betray me like this?" My voice cracked, unraveling into something wild and raw. I probably looked like a cornered dog, soaked, beaten, still baring its teeth. I refused to take the deal. I wouldn't go down quietly. Not until Olivia came to see me alone. She stood in front of me with the same elegance she always had, but there was steel in her eyes now, cold and unflinching. "Give it up," she said flatly. "People like you never win. No matter how hard you fight, the Sinclair family could crush you without even blinking." Her hand drifted to her stomach. "If I hadn't slept with you, if I'd married Damon instead, the Whitneys might have had a shot at getting back everything we lost. I could have gone back to the life I deserved." She let out a breath. "Now I'm pregnant. And no, don't flatter yourself, it's not yours. This baby is my future. My bargaining chip. My redemption. I never meant for this to happen," she whispered. "But you ruined me. Don't ruin this child too. You can't give me the life I want, Ryan. Why can't you just let me go?" She looked down at her belly, cradling it like something fragile and sacred. And I realized then, I wasn't even a person to her anymore. I was just a mistake she needed to erase. In the end, I gave in. Between my mother's relentless screaming and the emotional wreckage of that unborn child, I finally signed the divorce papers. 1 year in prison, it felt like the only way to buy a little peace. While I was inside, my father died. My mother, true to form, racked up more gambling debt. When her creditors came knocking, she tried to flee, slipped, and fell to her death. No one claimed the body. The coroner's office had no choice but to call the emergency contact on file, Olivia. When I got out, I asked about my mother's remains. Olivia laughed, cold, heartless, and said she'd tossed them in a dumpster. "Don't call me again," she added, like I was an inconvenience. So that was it. No family. No past. Just me. I changed my name to Marcus Morgan and convinced myself I could start over. New city. New life. But then that little girl showed up, out of nowhere, and the illusion shattered. Thankfully, Los Angeles kept me busy. There was always another meeting, another deal to close, another fire to put out. Within weeks, I'd buried the memories of Olivia and that child deep enough to stop thinking about them. Work became my refuge. A knock at the door broke the rhythm. "Mr. Morgan," my assistant called softly. "Come in," I said, glancing up from the mountain of contracts in front of me, silently praying she wasn't about to hand me another stack to sign. She peeked in with a smirk. "You don't have to look at me like I just ruined your weekend. I don't want to be working late either." Her name was Sherry. We went to college together. She'd been with me from the very beginning of my startup days. After I changed my identity and moved to Los Angeles, we'd run into each other by chance. She was visiting family. We reconnected, and she joined the new company. I laughed dryly. "Is it obvious?" Sherry shrugged. "Just a little." Then her expression shifted. "Not work-related this time," she said. "That little girl from before? She's back. Somehow slipped through security in the middle of the morning rush. She's in the guest room next door." I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. "I'll take care of it," I muttered, rising from my chair and heading toward the conference suite. Claire was sitting quietly in the guest room, sipping milk from a paper cup Sherry must have handed her. "Daddy," she said as soon as she saw me. "Let's get one thing straight," I said, holding up a hand. "I'm not your dad. Got it?" I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Now, kiddo, want to tell me why you snuck in here?" Her lower lip trembled. "Mommy wasn't home, and I was hungry." "Why didn't you call her?" I asked. "She doesn't like when I call," Claire said, eyes dropping to the floor. Her little hands twisted nervously at the hem of her shirt. "She's with Uncle Damon." "Uncle Damon?" "Damon Sinclair." They'd been wrapped around each other for years now. And Claire was still calling him uncle? They never got married? A flicker of confusion passed through me, then disgust. What the hell did it matter to me whether Olivia married him or not? I shook it off. "If you were hungry," I said, harsher than I intended, "you should have gone to a diner." You can't just show up here and disrupt my work. I'm sorry, she whispered, and tears sprang to her eyes instantly. It's my birthday today. But Mommy went to be with Uncle Damon. I didn't have any money, and my tummy hurt. So I came to find you. She didn't look like a child who'd made up a story. Her clothes were stained, her shoes had a hole near the toe. The only thing that looked cared for was the braid in her hair, tied with a cartoon character ribbon I instantly recognized, Sherry's favorite anime. Olivia never watched cartoons. That braid was Sherry's doing. She must have cleaned her up a little after she found her. I sighed, a deep, tired sound that came from somewhere behind my ribs. Come on, I said at last, softening. Let's go get you a birthday cake. Then I'll take you home. Okay, Claire whispered, blinking away her tears as she carefully reached out and wrapped her small hand around mine. Claire was well behaved, remarkably so for her age. I took her to a small dessert cafe a few blocks from the office. She sat quietly across from me, feet swinging just above the floor, slowly working her way through a slice of cake. I watched her from across the table, and before I could stop myself, my thoughts drifted to Olivia. It wasn't because I still had feelings for her, God, no. But something about the moment felt surreal. This was Olivia's child. The same child who'd been nothing more than a vague consequence 5 years ago, a shadow that changed the entire course of my life before it was even born. Do I hate Claire? Maybe. Maybe in that first moment, when I realized who she was, what she represented, I felt something close to loathing. But then I saw her again. And that feeling started to slip. The waitress brought up the cake to our table on the second floor, grinning as she set it down. What a cute little girl, are you going out to play with your dad today? Shoo, Claire said seriously, glancing at me. He's not my daddy. Before the woman could jump to any conclusions, I pulled out a business card and pointed to the office tower across the street. I'm actually her father, I said, keeping my tone light. She got upset earlier, and I told her I didn't want her anymore, bad parenting move. Now she's fired me from the job. The waitress laughed. No need to explain. You two look so much alike, it's obvious she's yours. I gave a weak smile and sat back down. After a few quiet minutes, Claire looked up, her cheeks smudged with frosting. Uncle, what's your name? She asked cautiously. Marcus, I said. Her eyes searched mine. So, you're really not my daddy? I hesitated. I'm not sure, I said honestly. I'm sorry, but I guess legally I'm not your dad, but, your mom should have taught you not to go off with strangers, right? I was grasping at words, trying to build some kind of wall between us, to set a boundary that already felt shaky. Claire just blinked those big eyes at me, wide and unguarded, as if she hadn't heard a word I said, or maybe as if she had, and was still deciding whether to believe me. It was true, though I'd done everything I could to ignore it, the resemblance was undeniable. Aside from her eyes, which mirrored Olivia's exactly, Claire looked like a miniature version of me. And Damon Sinclair? He was biracial. Claire didn't share a single feature with him. Biologically speaking, I was probably her father. Uncle Marcus, Claire said suddenly, her tone strangely serious for a child, lying is a survival skill. Everyone has to learn it. I raised an eyebrow. Where'd you get that from? Mom, she said matter-of-factly. She says men especially can't survive without lying. They just get crushed. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Jesus. What the hell has Olivia been teaching you? I'm full now, she announced, sliding off her chair with a casual shrug. Thanks for the cake. I won't bother you at work again. Bye. Wait, what? Where are you going? I called out, startled. Home, she replied, shooting me a look like I was the idiot here. Where else am I supposed to sleep tonight? I stood up. I'll take you. Even as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. This was Olivia's daughter. Driving her home meant facing Olivia. There was no way around it. I stood there for 30 full seconds, torn between reason and instinct, before finally opening the passenger door and helping Claire into the car. As I pulled out into traffic, Claire glanced at me from the back seat. Uncle Marcus, you look nervous. I'm not, I muttered. Just tired. I'll drop you off, and then, well, we probably won't see each other again. I hope you have a good life, Claire. And I meant it. But I was nervous. More than nervous. The idea of seeing Olivia again, Olivia, the woman I once loved so fiercely, the woman who gutted me without flinching, made my skin crawl. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. God, what the hell was I doing? As luck would have it, or maybe misfortune, I didn't see Olivia. "Bye, Uncle Marcus," Claire said as she pushed open the front door. "I'd invite you in for coffee, but I can't lift the kettle." The door swung open, revealing a home that looked more abandoned than lived in, cluttered, grimy, hollow. The kind of place where silence didn't feel peaceful, just forgotten. I stood there for a moment, gut twisting. This was once our home. The place Olivia and I shared as husband and wife. When we divorced, I hadn't asked for the house. I figured letting her keep it would be cleaner, easier. I never imagined she'd still be living here. And I never imagined she'd let it rot into this. "Do you stay here alone a lot?" I asked, even though I knew I should have turned around and left. Claire nodded unmoved. "Yeah. Even though Mom didn't tell me, I think her boyfriend doesn't like me. So I'm staying here while she's with Uncle Damon." "Marcus, you're a damn fool." I cursed myself silently, then, against every ounce of logic, stepped through the doorway into the wreckage of my former life. It wasn't heroism. It wasn't nostalgia. It was just Claire. I couldn't leave a little girl in a place like this. Not with food cartons molding on the counter, laundry piled in corners, and the stink of neglect hanging in the air. I started picking things up, clearing trash, straightening what I could. This wasn't about Olivia. It wasn't about the past. It was about the child standing in the middle of the mess, quietly watching me, waiting for someone, anyone, to act like an adult. That's all this was. At least, that's what I told myself. Back when we first got married, I bought this place behind my parents' backs and put it under Olivia's name. "A two-bedroom? This tiny shoebox is your idea of a romantic gesture?" She scoffed as she walked in for the first time, rolling her eyes like I'd handed her a shoelace and called it a diamond necklace. "I'm sorry, but at least this way I don't have to pay back the loan." I rubbed my hands awkwardly, because this marriage was unexpected. I didn't have much time to prepare. It wasn't much of a wedding either. No ceremony, no guests, no flowers. Just 2 signatures and an awkward photo. Everything about our marriage had been rushed, forced. Except for the house. This was the one thing I tried to give her, even if it was small. Olivia responded with a dramatic huff, then hauled in a mountain of luxury clothes and designer handbags, cramming them into the master bedroom closet like she was moving into a high-rise penthouse. The closet filled up within days. Next came the guest room, converted almost overnight into her personal walk-in closet. She didn't want to share a bed with me. Said I snored, or that I moved too much in my sleep, or that she just couldn't rest with someone breathing next to her. So I slept on the couch. Not even a real couch, just a cheap, scratchy fabric model from some showroom clearance section. It squeaked when I turned and sagged in the middle, but it became my bed. Eventually, I noticed her designer clothes started disappearing, one handbag here, a few hangers there. Then one day, a brand new living room set appeared, sleek, hand-stitched leather from a Milanese designer, with wool cushions and fuzzy throw pillows that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Finally," Olivia said, chin tilted proudly. "No more tasteless garbage. This is the level of quality I deserve." She never mentioned where the clothes went. I didn't ask. And so, just like that, my sleeping spot upgraded from a cheap polyester couch, to a piece of luxury furniture worth nearly a third of the apartment itself. But no matter the price tag, I still slept alone. And I still wasn't welcome in the bed. Starting a company from scratch meant long hours and endless stress. Some nights, I was so exhausted I'd skip dinner entirely, just come home, collapse on the couch, and fall asleep in my work clothes. Olivia, despite working as my receptionist, always left right at 5. Never stayed late. Never waited for me. But dinner? That she never skipped. Even if I was half asleep and could barely keep my eyes open, she'd stomp into the living room and kick me awake. "If you want to starve, go ahead," she'd snap. "But I still need to eat." Another dramatic eye roll, like I'd committed a war crime by taking a nap. "I'm exhausted," I groaned once, rubbing my temples. "Can't you just order takeout for once? Please don't start with me tonight." "Oh, really? You think you can raise your voice at me?" She shot back, eyes blazing. And even angry, she looked stunning, annoyingly so. I never could hold my ground with her for long. In my mind, she was still that untouchable girl from college, the one who'd never lifted a finger in her life. So I dragged myself up and headed to the kitchen, already mentally planning the meal. Dinner had to be perfect. Not because I loved cooking, but because Olivia's standards were impossible. She barely ate, but when she did, everything had to be fresh. No leftovers. No repeats. So I cooked full meals. And when she pushed her plate away after a few bites, I finished whatever was left. You know, she said once, watching me eat her untouched risotto, if your company goes under, you could always become a chef. You might actually survive. I chuckled, wiping my hands on a dish towel. It won't go under. This project's promising. Give it time, Olivia. Someday I'll buy you a bigger place, something really nice. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Let's hope so, she said finally. But something in her voice didn't match the words. Back then, I didn't think too much of Olivia's moods. Sure, she had a temper, but somewhere beneath the sarcasm, the constant eye rolls, and the impossible demands, I convinced myself there were signs, tiny ones, that she cared. The new couch. The meal she insisted I cook. The way she made sure I never skipped dinner. That had to count for something, right? I knew she didn't love me. The night we first slept together, when everything changed, she cried. Not soft, regretful tears, but the kind that came from somewhere deep and aching. That image haunted me. There were nights I'd lie awake thinking maybe I should have turned myself in, told the cops everything and let them decide. But she never pressed charges. She married me instead. And that, to me, meant something. Coming from the family I did, broken, bitter, violent, I thought just having a home, a wife, someone to come home to, that was already more than I ever hoped for. Marriage isn't always about love, I told myself. Sometimes it's just two people, trying to survive. It wasn't perfect, but we were making it work, or so I thought. As my company grew, so did the distance between us. Olivia started disappearing. She'd stay out late, sometimes all night. I'd pace the living room alone, phone in hand, heart pounding. When she finally picked up, her voice would be sweet, lilting. Baby, don't be mad. I'm just out with the girls. Pathetic as it sounds, that was all it took to calm me down. Once, after landing a major contract, I rushed out to buy her a necklace. Something delicate, gold, with a tiny sapphire, her birthstone. I paired it with a bouquet of roses and waited. She didn't come home that night. The next morning, I was still sitting there, stiff and sleepless, when she finally walked through the door. Why don't you ever come home? I asked, my voice hoarse. She turned on me, instantly bristling. What, are you accusing me of something? You think you have the right to question where I go? Don't forget who you are. You think you're entitled to control me? We fought, loud, ugly, bitter. Or rather, she shouted, and I absorbed it. That night, I packed a few things and moved into my office. Olivia didn't stop me. Didn't call. Didn't care. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just couldn't stand the silence anymore. The empty apartment felt colder every time I walked in. And then, out of nowhere, she reached out. She showed up at my office with a soft voice and a bottle of wine. Her first apology. Her final trap. By the time I finished cleaning, I'd already missed half a day of work. Outside, the sky had gone dark. Thankfully, Olivia hadn't changed much. Her habits were still the same, and after digging through the piles of clutter, I managed to find a few clean sets of Claire's clothes. Once I confirmed she could handle a shower on her own, I let her wash up and change. While she was in the bathroom, I opened the fridge and immediately regretted it. I tossed out 16-month-old eggs, a bag of moldy broccoli, and a bottle of chili sauce that had expired sometime during the last presidential administration. Then I headed downstairs to the corner market, bought fresh groceries, and came back to cook. Claire sat at the small dining table, her eyes wide as I placed a steaming bowl of noodles in front of her. "You're amazing, Uncle Marcus," she said with pure admiration. I let out a wry laugh. Is that so? I hadn't learned to cook because I liked it. I learned for her mother. Yeah. Mommy's cooking is terrible, Claire said bluntly. It's always way too salty, or she confuses sugar with salt and it's just gross. She wrinkled her nose in theatrical disgust, like a tiny food critic with a vendetta. Your mom used to be a princess, I said, half smiling. Cooking wasn't her thing. Well, even princesses can learn if they want to, Claire replied matter-of-factly. But my mom? She really doesn't want to. I couldn't help but laugh. Eat it quickly, or it will get cold. Just as I sat down and reached for my own bowl, a sharp noise broke through the quiet. A loud click at the front door. The door creaked open. Mom! Claire leapt from her chair, excited, her little feet pattering toward the entryway. But the first voice we heard wasn't Olivia's. "Get out of the way." It was a man's voice, low, slurred, and razor-sharp. A voice I would recognize anywhere. A voice I hated down to the marrow of my bones. "Uncle Damon," Claire whispered, her joy collapsing into fear. Her voice trembled, laced with confusion and something like shame. She slowly backed away from the door. "You scared her," I said, my anger rising like a flash fire from the soles of my feet to the top of my skull. I strode forward, fast and unthinking, and blocked the doorway with my body. Damon Sinclair stood there, reeking of alcohol, with Olivia slumped over his shoulder, barely conscious, her arms limp at her sides. "You?" he scoffed, squinting at me. "What's your name again?" "Marcus," I said, voice like ice. He didn't care. Just smirked and tried to push past me into the house. "With all due respect," I said, standing firm, "you're not exactly welcome here." We locked eyes, his pale green against my dark fury, and neither of us moved. "The hell are you playing at?" Damon sneered. "Didn't I beat the crap out of you once already? You really want a round two?" He yanked Olivia's chin up roughly, tilting her face toward me. "Look at this, Olivia. Your little stray dog came back." Olivia stirred slightly, head lolling, her eyes fluttering open without focus. And that face, God, that face. The one I used to know better than my own. I barely recognized it now. She was rail-thin, her cheekbones jutting out beneath layers of garish makeup that couldn't hide the swollen bruises or the deep, smudged circles under her eyes. "Olivia?" I whispered, stunned. This wasn't the woman I remembered. Not the proud, radiant girl who once stood under a patch of sunlight and made me believe in things like magic. This was a ghost. A stranger. And she looked nothing like the Olivia I once loved. Damon Sinclair let out a low, bitter laugh. Well. Happy reunion, huh? Seeing your old flame got you all worked up. You want her back? He smirked, eyes cold. Tell you what, I'm done with her. Bored. You can have her. $1 million. She's all yours. Enough, I snapped, stepping forward and clapping my hands over Claire's ears. Put her down. Then get the hell out of here. He blinked, amused. I swear to God, I growled, I'll call the cops right now. Tell them a drunk man showed up at my door, driving under the influence, harassing my ex-wife, scaring a child. You'll be in cuffs before you sober up. Damon didn't argue. He gave me one last mocking smile, then dropped Olivia carelessly onto the floor like a sack of clothes and walked out without another word. The door slammed behind him. Uncle Marcus, what's wrong with Mommy? Claire's voice trembled as she stared at Olivia, tears streaking her cheeks. She clutched my shirt, eyes wide with fear. I bent down, pulling her into a gentle hug. Shoo, it's okay. She's just sick, sweetheart. Damon brought her home. We're going to take care of her, okay? Claire nodded, sniffling, the weight of the moment pressing down on her small frame. She knew I was lying. I could see it in her eyes. But she didn't call me out. She was the kind of kid who knew when to let a lie slide, especially when it was told to protect her. She slipped out of my arms and walked over to the sink, pulling out a damp washcloth. Then she knelt beside her mother and gently wiped the makeup from Olivia's bruised face. And that's when I knew for sure. It was her. Even without the makeup, without the fire in her eyes, without the pride she once wore like armor, it was Olivia. But she looked nothing like the woman I remembered. She looked broken. And maybe I should have felt some twisted sense of satisfaction. After all, this was the woman who betrayed me, who ruined my life without blinking. But I didn't. All I could think was one thing. If this is what Olivia looks like now, what kind of life has Claire been living? Kids fall asleep early. Claire was no exception. After tucking her in and making sure she was settled, I found myself back on the same leather couch I used to sleep on night after night, alone, waiting. Waiting for Olivia to wake up. You're not planning to play the hero and slip out quietly, are you? Her voice broke the silence. She wasn't asleep. Never had been. We need to talk, I said, meeting her eyes. Strangely, I felt nothing. No bitterness. No warmth. Just clarity. She's your daughter, Olivia said, her voice low. You might not believe me, but she's yours. Damon Sinclair, he's infertile. Can't have children. I figured, I said calmly. I'd known from the moment I saw Claire. Her face had answered every question. So, what are you after? I asked, my voice sharp. Olivia gave a half-shrug, pushed her tangled hair behind her ears, and adjusted the cheap necklace around her neck like it still meant something. Then she pulled a cigarette from her pocket and lit it, taking a long drag. The smoke curled around her like a veil, beautiful in a ruined way. She wasn't a gardenia anymore. She was a rose rotting in its own perfume. Fine, she said. Yes. I sent Claire to find you. I made sure she saw your company building and knew your name. So you want me to claim her? I asked. Yes. Her voice cracked. She'll be destroyed if she stays with me. I let out a bitter laugh. Funny. Didn't you once say being with me would destroy her? That was my mistake, she said quietly. I'm sorry. I don't accept your apology. Her eyes flicked to mine, unreadable. Then she shrugged again, almost carelessly. Then I guess there's nothing left to discuss. Doors over there. I didn't move. Just stared at her. I'm not here to forgive you. But that child, our daughter, she can't keep living like this. So name your terms. What do you want? She leaned back, blowing out another stream of smoke, then gave me a crooked smile. Marcus Morgan. Not bad. Rolls off the tongue better than Ryan Smith. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Why Morgan, though? I remember your mom's last name was Cooper. She wasn't ready to answer my question. Not yet. She wanted to play games. But I wasn't here to play. After being released from prison, I said, my voice even, my college advisor reached out. Said she believed in me. Said I deserved a second chance. So when I changed my name, I chose her last name. Olivia nodded slowly, taking one last drag from her cigarette before grinding it out in the ashtray. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, she said. I'll bring Claire's documents. You bring your ID. We'll meet at the courthouse. That's it? I asked, frowning. That's it. She shrugged. Her full name is Claire Whitney. You can change it to Morgan if you want. I hope tomorrow's the last time we ever see each other, she added without looking at me. Of course, I said, rising to my feet. I straightened my slightly wrinkled blazer and walked out the door. I didn't ask about the bruises. I didn't ask about the life she'd been living all these years. Because the truth was, aside from that bright, sharp little girl asleep in the other room, Olivia and I no longer had anything to do with each other. We'd reached the end of the line. Goodbye, Olivia. The woman I once loved, once hated, and now, felt nothing for at all. The next morning at 10 sharp, I stood outside the courthouse, waiting. I waited as the minutes dragged on, as the sun climbed higher, as the staff inside started heading out for their lunch breaks. No sign of Olivia. I checked my phone again. Nothing. Damn it. Fury surged in my chest as I climbed back into the car, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. Had she just played me? Led me on some final loop of her games? The phone rang. Sherry. I snatched it up. Yeah? I said, rubbing my forehead, already feeling the exhaustion settle in. Marcus, she said, her voice breathless, tight with panic. Something's happened. You need to get to Olivia's place. Now. Before I could ask anything, the line went dead. When I arrived back at Olivia's apartment, the building was in chaos. Yellow police tape flapped in the wind, stretched across the doorway. The door itself hung open, and the place was swarming with officers, paramedics, and onlookers pressing in from the hall. Mr. Morgan, a uniformed officer stepped toward me. Yes. That's me, I said quickly. What happened? Where's my daughter? Before he could answer, Claire was brought out. She didn't say a word, just ran straight into my arms and buried her face in my chest. The officer gave me a moment, then spoke gently. There was a call about smoke coming from the kitchen. When we got here, we found the stove still on. Turns out the little girl was hungry and tried to make something herself, but didn't know how to turn off the burner. I tightened my arms around Claire. But, the officer continued, his tone shifting, when responders checked the rest of the apartment, they found the mother, Olivia, in the bedroom. She was unresponsive. We believe she died suddenly. Likely cardiac arrest. The coroner's on the way. Her next of kin has been notified. I swallowed hard, nodding. And Claire. She managed to call a woman named Sherry, your assistant. She told us you were the child's father, so we had her contact you to come pick her up. I understand. Can I take Claire with me now? I asked. This place, it's not good for her. The officer nodded. Yes, of course. Just stay in Los Angeles for the time being and keep your phone on. We may need to follow up. I gathered Claire in my arms and pushed through the crowd of onlookers, Sherry following close behind. We didn't speak until we reached the car and shut the doors, sealing out the noise. Let's go to my place, Sherry said quietly. It's closer, and Claire needs rest. I nodded and started the engine. As we drove through the city, the adrenaline faded, replaced by a heavy, spinning silence. After a few minutes, I glanced sideways at her. When did I ever tell you I was her dad? Sherry shrugged, not even looking up. Please. She looks exactly like you. And she did. Every line, every feature. There was no denying it anymore. Olivia was gone. The words kept looping in my head, impossible to process. One moment she was standing in front of me, cigarette in hand, bargaining with her usual detached charm, and the next, she was gone. How was I supposed to explain that to Claire? Sherry, where's my mom? Claire asked, just as I feared she would. Sherry didn't miss a beat. I told you already, sweetheart. Your mom's on a super-secret mission. She's playing detective right now. We can't disturb her, okay? Claire blinked, then nodded. Oh. She didn't press. Instead, she wandered off toward the two cats curling lazily in the living room. Sherry had been right, cats were a good distraction. Her apartment was warm and homey, a small 3-bedroom with soft lighting and the faint scent of vanilla. The cats weren't shy either, bold, friendly, and immediately drawn to Claire's gentle hands. Sherry gave me a knowing look. Sit with Claire. I'll cut up some fruit. I nodded, my chest too tight to speak. I couldn't thank her enough. She'd seen right through me, I needed time to think, to breathe. But before I could gather my thoughts, Claire looked up from the rug where she was playing. Uncle Morgan, she said quietly, my mom is dead, isn't she? I froze. No, she's just tired. She needed to rest. No one stops breathing when they're just sleeping, Claire said softly, her fingers curling around one of the cat's ears. I checked. I know what death is. When Grandpa died, I saw it too. Her voice didn't waver, but her eyes were red. And now, my mom is gone. And you're not really my dad. That means I don't have anyone left, right? Her voice cracked just slightly. So can you find me a good orphanage? Please. One that's not scary. That broke me. Completely. I opened my mouth to answer, but the words caught. My throat closed. I had to blink fast to keep from falling apart. I am your dad, I said finally, my voice trembling. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I talked to your mom last night. She was going to take you to see me today. I was going to make it right. But now it was too late. The tears came, uninvited, streaming down my face. I'd spent years believing I had nothing left in this world, that I was utterly alone. And then, somehow, unbelievably, I found her. My daughter. The one person who shared my blood. And who was now looking at me with a wounded kind of hope. I could take her away soon and let her live a carefree life, so why did life make her go through this? Claire, I said gently, brushing her hair away from her face. Listen to me. I was married to your mom once. We had a hard time, and we ended things. But I didn't know about you back then. It's not that I didn't want you. I never even had the chance. She sat quietly, eyes down, hands in her lap. You're not a child nobody wants, I said, voice breaking. Your mom, she wanted you to be with me. She wanted you to have a better life. So, what do you think? Would you like to come live with your dad? She blinked up at me. Dad. Then her chin trembled. I feel like crying, she whispered. Can I? I miss mommy. Of course, I said, pulling her close. You cry as much as you need to. And she did. Her small body shook with sobs, and I held her, aching in a way I didn't know was possible. I would have traded every second of my past, every success, every dollar, to spare her from this moment. When Shirley returned with the cut fruit, Claire had cried herself to sleep in my arms. I found this at Olivia's place, Sherry said, skipping any attempt at consolation. She dropped a flash drive into my lap. I plugged it into my laptop. Inside was everything. Evidence that Sinclair Group had sabotaged the Whitney family's company. Files documenting Damon Sinclair's abuse of young female employees. And, God, documents, screenshots, even video records tied to the scandal that nearly destroyed me. She had kept it all. Even the footage of that night. The night in the office. The night that changed everything. Wow, Sherry said, one brow arched as she peeked at the screen. Didn't think you had it in you, Marcus. Shut up, I snapped, feeling my face go hot. She grinned, entirely unfazed. Why so shy? Look on the bright side, you've got proof now. You can clear your name. Clear it with this? I snapped, slamming the laptop shut. I'd rather my reputation stay buried than drag that mess into court. That, I gestured vaguely, furious and ashamed all at once. That's not justice. That's a nightmare. Sherry just shook her head, still smiling that maddening smile of hers. Yeah, she said softly. But it's still the truth. And sometimes, Marcus, the truth is enough to start over. There was one file left in the folder, a single audio recording. I didn't think much of it as I clicked play. Then her voice came through. You're insane. You want me to drug Ryan? Olivia's voice, sharp and panicked. Come on, baby, it'll be fun, came Damon Sinclair's voice, thick with cruelty and amusement. Do what I say, and I'll get your dad out on bail. He's just a college friend, Olivia snapped. You'll have the code soon anyway. Why target him? Oh, come on, Damon replied, voice dipped in venom. That loser had a crush on you in school, right? Men know men, sweetheart. I know exactly what he wanted from you. I'm not even in the country and I can smell it from here. Stay away from him. There was a long silence, then Olivia's voice again, flat, resigned. Fine. I get it. I couldn't listen any further. Something inside me shut down. I sat frozen, my mind spinning, the sound of static roaring in my ears. She'd set me up. From the beginning. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't some twisted moment of vulnerability. It was a plan. Because I'd liked her? Because I dared to love her? What the hell had I done to deserve this? I slammed my fist against the table. Rage burst out of me like a dam breaking. Damon Sinclair, go to hell. The truth was simple, brutal in its simplicity. Olivia never loved Ryan. Not even a little. From the start, her heart belonged to Damon Sinclair, her childhood sweetheart. But to Damon, women were disposable. Interchangeable. Just another accessory to his power. When the Sinclair family absorbed the Whitney business in a cold, calculated takeover, Damon finally had what he wanted, Olivia, under his thumb. Her freedom, gone. Her beauty, weaponized. The only thing that bothered him, the only pebble in his polished shoe, was a small, scrappy startup that beat him in a bid. A company run by a man he'd once seen in the halls of their university, a poor kid with a scholarship and a soft, longing stare. Ryan. Damon hated him. Despised him for daring to win. For daring to want what Damon claimed as his. And so he gave the order. Use her. Send Olivia to seduce him. Drug him. Ruin him. Just for the sake of shame and anger. And she did. But Damon Sinclair soon realized something had gone wrong. Olivia hadn't followed the plan. She didn't just ruin Ryan and walk away. She slept with him. Then she married him. You did what? Damon had roared when he found out. How dare you? Why not? Olivia had replied coldly. I don't trust you, Damon. Not unless you come back and marry me. Until then, I'm not giving you anything. She didn't love Ryan. That had never changed. But Ryan was good. Infuriatingly, heartbreakingly good. And against her will, Olivia began to care for him, in her own twisted, distant way. She still loved Damon. Still dreamed of becoming a Sinclair. Still believed there might be a future for her in that powerful, ruthless family. And yes, she had betrayed Ryan. But when she found out she was pregnant, something shifted. Without hesitation, she decided to keep the baby. Even knowing it shared Ryan's blood. Even knowing what she'd done. Damon, of course, never kept his promises. He refused to marry her. But he didn't let her go, either. Still, Olivia got what she wanted, her father, freed from prison with Damon's help. That bought her time. In exchange, she became Damon's mistress. He loved her in the most dangerous way. And he hurt her with the same intensity. She wore that necklace still, the one she'd once thrown in the trash, then quietly picked back up. She never understood why. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was the weight of having betrayed someone who had loved her honestly. After her father passed away, Olivia finally saw it all clearly. There was nothing left for her in Damon's world, no power, no future, no redemption. But she had a daughter. And just when everything seemed beyond repair, the man who had changed his name to Marcus was back. The man she once destroyed. The man she once married. The man she hoped, just maybe, could save the one thing she had left to protect. "Claire, look," Olivia whispered gently, cradling her daughter close. She pointed to the screen, to the image of a younger man, sharp suit, bright eyes, his whole future still untouched. "That's your dad." "I have a dad?" Claire asked, eyes wide with wonder. "Do you think he'll like me?" Olivia hesitated for only a second. Then she nodded. "He will. That's why I had you. Because I knew he'd love you." She never loved Ryan. Not in the way he had loved her. He was brilliant, kind, even noble in his strange, quiet way. But there was something about him that unsettled her. A deep-rooted insecurity he carried like a shadow. A haunted, hungry sort of humility that clung to him, born from a childhood full of wounds he never talked about. Olivia had always preferred confidence. Swagger. Power. She'd fallen for men like Damon Sinclair, magnetic, ruthless, always in control. Ryan was careful. Too careful. She'd never taken him seriously. And yet, somehow, he had moved her. She remembered seeing him again, 5 years after they had parted. It was in the house he had given her, the house she had thought he had forgotten. He walked in not as the boy she broke, but as a man reborn. And when he sat across from Damon Sinclair, the man who had humiliated and ruined him, he didn't shout. He didn't curse. He didn't throw a single accusation. Instead, with a calm that stunned her, he simply said, "We need to talk. About the child." He was no longer asking for anything. He wasn't seeking forgiveness. He had moved on. He was steady. Clear. Like sunlight after a storm. And in that quiet grace, in the space between all the destruction they had caused each other, Olivia saw him. Really saw him. Not as the boy who once worshipped her. But as the man he'd become. And that night, with the past crumbling behind her and the end drawing near, Olivia reached for the one relic she'd never managed to throw away, the necklace he gave her, tarnished and old, but still warm somehow. She wore it to bed. And in the stillness of that final night, with every scar aching beneath her skin, Olivia Whitney, beautiful, ruined, and full of ghosts, finally let herself feel what she had spent a lifetime resisting. She fell in love with Ryan. Too late. With the evidence in hand, I took Damon Sinclair to court, on suspicion of involvement in my ex-wife's death. Marcus. Formerly Ryan, the judge said, glancing at the file with a raised brow. Forgive my bluntness, but you two were divorced. The certificate's right here in your evidence folder. Oh, that. I nodded, unfazed. We separated back then because I was facing some legal trouble. I didn't want to drag Olivia and the child down with me. But we were planning to remarry, give our daughter a complete home. I lied without blinking. My face didn't so much as twitch. The judge shrugged. All right, then. The truth? The charge didn't hold. Olivia's death had been ruled an accident. But what about the rest? Damon Sinclair's crimes, bribery, extortion, harassment, and worse, were clear as day. The courts took over. He's not getting out of jail this time. I was cleared of all charges. And with that momentum, I landed several new clients. My company took root in Los Angeles. For the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling like the world was pressing against my chest. As for Olivia, I had no intention of dragging her name through the mud. Not in court. Not in memory. She betrayed me, yes. But she was also the mother of my child. And I'd be damned if Claire ever grew up thinking her mom was just a villain in someone else's story. Claire once said something that stuck with me. Adults need lies. Because in the adult world, nothing is truly black or white. Some things just pass. And when they do, you let them. I never changed Claire's name. She was raised and loved by her mother. And she'll carry Olivia's name with pride. Claire Whitney. My daughter. My future. And if the universe is listening, I'm ready for whatever comes next. Okay. I take back everything I said before. After a year of raising a little girl on my own, I'd come to a very firm conclusion. Children are the most complicated creatures on earth. Seriously. Half the time I wanted to pry open Claire's head just to figure out what exactly was going on in there. Aunt Shirley, she said one day, in full stage whisper mode, I believe there's no man in the world a candlelit dinner can't win over. My dad is clearly the type who's been betrayed and is just waiting for a sweet woman to heal him. Trust me, give him a taste of what home feels like, and he'll melt. She was dressed to impress, tiny floral dress, 2 little braids bouncing with every dramatic hand gesture. Honestly? Adorable. Claire, I groaned, scooping her up before she could launch into another speech. No more romance novels, please. She wrapped her arms around my neck, voice dropping to a confidential whisper. Dad, listen. It's okay. You don't have to avoid dating just because of me. I'm not 5 anymore. I'm 6. I can totally handle Aunt Shirley becoming my new mom. I shot Sherry a sheepish smile. Thanks for picking her up today. No problem, she said, casually tossing her bag on the couch. So, what do you say, you want to come over? Maybe, have a candlelit dinner? Wait, what? I blinked. She's asking if you want to go to her house, Claire said, exasperated, have dinner, and finally tell her you like her. By the way, the flower shop's still open. You should grab some roses. I like yellow, Sherry added with a smirk. Oh. Yeah. Sure. I nodded, ears burning. Claire slid down from my arms with dramatic flair. Well then, I'll be dining at Aunt Sherry's parents' place tonight. You two enjoy yourselves. You still need to. Okay, I'll finish my ridiculous homework, she waved us off. Bye, Dad. Bye, future mommy Shirley. I turned to Sherry, still recovering. In that case, I said, bowing slightly and extending my hand, before dinner, do you think we need to have a date first? She arched a brow and slipped her hand into mine. Absolutely, Mr. Morgan.